Good afternoon. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on October 13th, 2021, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls and I serve as the chair. Hearings are broadcast live on Channel 18 and also recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. Please let me know if anyone else is recording this meeting. Today's hearing is being conducted via remote video conference, originally pursuant to the governor's emergency COVID order, and now under an order allowing remote public meetings through April 1st, 2022. The agenda and copies of documents for review today are posted on the town's website. To all participants, please remain muted unless you are speaking. If you're attending via phone, using *6 and use *6 again to unmute. After presentations by applicants and or the representatives, I'll normally ask for comments and questions from commissioners, then the same from any interested parties. If you're on the Teams platform, indicate that you wish to speak by using the raised hand feature. And if you're attending by phone, please unmute with *6 and address the chair. When recognized by the chair, please identify yourself for the record. If you're not a commissioner and you are on the Teams platform, please keep your camera turned off unless you are recognized to speak. The commission will vote on each matter by roll call so that we have a record of a quorum. I will now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
I believe that Karen Latin is not here, and I believe that Terry Sullivan is not here. I guess that's true. No one spoke up. And Mary Sullivan.
Present.
And I am here, and I believe that we have a quorum. This is the second Wednesday of the month, so we need to finish today's hearing by 4:30 in order to not conflict with another hearing on Channel 18. This gives us 3.5 hours to conduct our business. Accordingly, we may need to continue any matter that exceeds 30 minutes of presentation and discussion. And I believe that Nikki also has a even earlier deadline, so it would be good if we can get it wrapped up by 4. Is that right, Nikki? Is it still the case for you?
That is correct. They want me at the Coastal Harbor Preservation, whatever that committee is called, meeting.
Right, whatever that is. Okay. So hopefully, if feel free to say we need to cut it off because I sometimes won't remember to do that. Nikki Smith is Chatham's conservation agent. I'll now ask her to lead us through today's agenda, including whether any items are continued.
All right, so we have 2 that are continued. They're both going to October 27th, so I can open both of them and we can continue them as one item. The first one is 275 Champlain Road, Burton B. Stanier, map 12A parcel 2, SE 10-3512, deck relocation and invasive plant management. The second one is 43 Dune Drive, 43 Dune Drive Realty Trust, map 16A parcel C4, SE 10-3510, replace deck and landscape alterations. So again, both of those have requested to be continued to October 27th.
Okay. Bob, could you just make a motion for both of them together?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 275 Champlain Road and 43 Dune Drive to October 27th, 2021.
Williams will second that.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Janet.
I'll be Terry today.
So roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So these votes will be quick. So it's unanimous to continue.
Okay, so next we have a notice of intent for 848 Fox Hill Road, Timothy and Christina Cohen, map 12L, parcel H5, SE 10-3508, demolition of the existing dwelling and rebuilding of a new dwelling.
Okay, do we have someone here?
David Clark.
Dave?
David Clark's on the line.
Oh, David.
So we've submitted revised plans, reducing the hardscape within the 50 to 100 foot buffer to the top of the bank. I think we're down to 130 something square feet increase over what's existing.
I have 137, but it's just a
Yep.
square.
Yep. So Nikki had emailed yesterday because it's not clear on the plan where that decrease was. The architect did provide a sketch that I sent to Nikki this morning. Basically, the area between the spa on the east side of the house to the north of that was patio, and that's all going to be no patio is proposed there now, so we removed the patio from that area. And the other change was we moved the wall adjacent to the pool back another foot. So that all came out to a little over, I think, over 300 square feet reduction.
Okay. Anybody else from your team has anything, or are you ready to?
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, please. Who are you, please?
Mike Picard, registered landscape architect with
Okay.
Sudbury Design Group.
All right, sure.
So just to expand upon what David stated, we removed the fire pit terrace, brought the pool area wall in. We are still offering 1,675 square feet of mitigation planting. So if you look at that from a ratio perspective, it's 12 times the requirement, 12 plus times the requirement. We're still keeping the 6x6 granite markers spaced along the mitigation in the buffer zone as previously on previous plans. The planting within the 50 to 100 is still greater than 50% all native. We meet all performance standards, and we're enhancing wildlife, and we're substantially adding plantings to the buffer zone. We feel that the homeowners are doing their very best to be good stewards of their piece of land there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, I have a few things that I guess I think I'll open it up, and since I see Bob's hand up. I'll just start with Bob.
Okay, so there's going to be turf or grass fescue mix around the fire pit now, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's in the raised above the wall, correct? So how is that going to be maintained?
It will be mowed just like other lawn areas.
So you just bring a string trimmer up top, is that the story?
No, you can easily, you don't have to go up any steps, Bob. You can, it just what you're seeing in red basically just blends to other lawn areas that were adjacent to what we were previously proposing.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
Terrace. Yeah,
All right,
so it just blends in. We reduced or remove that area of terrace to bring the square foot down.
Okay, great. And then I had one question for David. David, I know it doesn't have anything to do with this application, but the beach grass on the nourishment down by the shoreline, is that going to be done, or you did mention it to the homeowner, correct?
Yes, and we reviewed the previous order conditions and the certificate of compliance for that work, and there is an ongoing condition allowing them to maintain it and plant additional beach grass plugs when needed, and he anticipates doing that because it's in his best interest to do it.
Yeah, right. Okay, good enough. That's all I had. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else? I thought I saw your hand, Janet, but then it went, oh, there it is. Okay, go ahead.
I can't, I can't control this little device here. Nikki, can you just slide that up a little bit so I can see where the end of that red shaded area? When I was looking at the revised landscape plan this morning, other direction, there we go. So what is above that? So the area to the north of the fire pit, is that remaining patio or is that lawn as well? What is that?
That is lawn. There was a patio that's now lawn, and adjacent to the spa was originally intended to be lawn. So it's basically
Okay.
all lawn.
Okay, so everything around the fire pit, on the north side of the spa, up to the outdoor kitchen is all lawn.
That is correct.
Okay. What is the gray dashed line that runs across the top there? I think that may be a question for David, I'm not sure.
That's the zoning setback, I believe.
Oh, okay, well, then I don't care about that. Okay, that's real, I just wanted to confirm, and that will be, is it going to be, laid turf? We're in the outer aura here. It'll be the same kind of lawn as everywhere else? What do we,
That'll be a Cape Cod mix.
okay, great, Cape Fescue mix, perfect. That's it for me, thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Bob, do you have another question or is that the previous hand?
Sorry, I'm
Okay.
lower now.
Okay. So just to follow up on Janet, I guess I didn't pick up on the fact. So the red part in this new plan is newly lawn, but you're saying that the area above the spa is also lawn? Is that what I thought you said?
That is to the north, to the top of the sheet is lawn, which was previous.
It
So
was
that red
previously,
box you're
okay.
seeing, Mr. Chairman,
just-
was a terrace that
Oh.
we removed. It was terrace and it had square footage associated with it, so that's been removed. So now that lawn blends all the way through that area around the fire pit into the north there of the spa.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting response to our hoping that the hardscape in the outer aura would be reduced. It's not what I expected at all. It does reduce your numbers dramatically. I will grant you that. On the other hand, lawn certainly doesn't provide habitat or wildlife food value or anything of the such. So ideally, I was actually sort of expecting and hoping to see that it would be scaled down from the outside, not from the inside. Nevertheless, I do get the sense that the applicant and the team doesn't want to reduce the size of the overall hardscape, and this does technically address our concerns, even though, as I say, it's not really ideal. Anybody else? Mary, do you have any comments, questions, concerns? Do we have any other issues? Let me just take a quick look. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. So if there's nothing else, I guess we are ready for, oh, Janet?
No, I just had a comment in response to your comment, Bob.
Okay, all right.
And that is that I share your concern, and we've expressed it all along, that the coverage within the outer aura is, well, I think we've used the term excessive before. But I do want to recognize that between the second and the third submittals, they reduced that hardscaping by 475 square feet and increased the mitigation. And this area is already, is what we're talking about here. This is what got my attention with what you just said. This outer aura has already been disturbed by the existing house and the existing pool. It hasn't been natural in whatever, 50 years or so. So I'm happy to see the bump up, the creation of a really good, robust vegetated buffer strip along the top of the bank to protect that bank. Given the slope, I think that with the installation of the wells, they've mitigated for any chance of runoff coming from all of that hardscape down the slope. It looks like that's been taken care of. So, personal preferences and what we would like people to do aside, I think that as it is now stands, it does meet the performance standards. And so, my own personal feelings, whatever they are, I would be ready to vote in favor of sending this to an order of conditions.
All right, thank you, Janet. That's helpful. I see Mary's hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in that, they have made substantial reductions and increases in mitigation. And since it is already a developed area, I don't have any problem with, and they've also addressed the drainage issue because there is a steep bank, which I think was more of my concern. So although, yes, it appears to be a substantial size pool, I don't have any problem with the current proposal.
Thank you, Mary. All right, then it would seem, I don't know, Nicole, you have anything to say about it? We've gone around on this one a number of times, but if not, I think we are ready for a vote or a motion and a vote.
Okay, we just need a date on the work session. When would that be?
11/3.
11/3. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we move to send the 848 Fox Hill Road to for an order of conditions on November 3rd, 2021.
Williams, second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and it doesn't, I am going to vote aye as well, even though I have already expressed some hesitation about the manner in which it was met, but I do agree with the overall comments made by my fellow commissioners. And so I guess that is carried unanimously among those who are here.
All right, so next we have 225.
Thank you all.
Thanks. 225 Countryside.
Thank you very much.
James and Lisa Shanahan, map 6I, parcel N18. Last I saw, this did not have an SC number. Proposed demolition of existing garage and deck and construction of a new addition and deck.
Good afternoon, David Clark. On behalf of the Shanahans, I believe Teresa is on the line too. So this is a removal of a portion of the existing building and then rebuilding within that same footprint, but with extensions towards Muddy Creek and out into the driveway. The resource areas, because Muddy Creek is tidal, there's a coastal bank there, and also Muddy Creek, the mouth of Muddy Creek, according to DEP, is at the bridge, and so this is subject to the Rivers Act as well. So we show the 100 and 200 foot riparian lines from the river. So there's no getting out of the riverfront area. As you can see, only a very, very small portion of the lot is outside that, and that is within the street setbacks and sideline setbacks, and also has some challenging topography. The owners worked real hard to come up with a plan to try to find a way to get some more living space in this house. So they're giving up their garage and basically expanding the living space into the garage area. That'll require the existing portion of the house to be removed and then replaced. There's a small bump out towards the water and also a reconfiguration of the deck. So they've really tried to make the alterations as small as possible and fit their needs for the dwelling. The house was built, I think, around 1980. I did not find an order of conditions for the house. So 1980 obviously predated the Rivers Act, and it also predated DEP's guidance policy on what a coastal bank is. So I can see why it probably didn't go through conservation back in 1980. Everybody probably considered Muddy Creek an inland resource area. So the property has been developed. There's a lawn that extends right to the top of the bank, and also a footpath leading to stairs that go down to Muddy Creek. This does have to go to Zoning Board of Appeals. And Teresa has developed a Blue Flax Design has developed a mitigation plan, a restoration plan for the areas that are closest to Muddy Creek.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, should I start?
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of the Shanahan family. So just quickly kind of going over what's happening from a vegetation perspective on the site. It's a pretty well canopied lot. The main canopy species are pitch pine, red and white oaks. There are several mid-story black cherry trees and oak saplings throughout the bank area. Shrub layer on the site is dominated by summersweet, Clothyra alnifolia, arrowwood viburnum, and possum haw viburnum, Viburnum nudum. There is a significant amount of poison ivy located along the edge of the lawn and in areas where, and the edge of the pathway leading down the bank, where, typical to areas that have been disturbed over time. Some of that is actually climbing up to 20 feet and higher into the canopy trees. There's a gravel path leading down the slope to the stairs that are leading down to the wooden stairs that provide access to the riverfront area. You can see in the photos that that's currently shown on the screen that gravel path shows some significant signs of erosion down the center where it's formed a small gully with water running down that area. You can see in the picture on the right-hand side of the screen, that's all poison ivy growing into the edges of the wooden stairs. There is a mix of native vegetation. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, there's a stand of Japanese knotweed. It's located directly north of the driveway and again on the far east side of the property at the top of the bank. We've also observed bittersweet shrub honeysuckle, English ivy, and mugwort throughout the area. The canopy is a majority of native, though we did find some sycamore maple in limited quantities throughout the area. There's a significant amount of greenbrier, which we know is a native species, but can be aggressive, located throughout the property. So what we're proposing is to do a mix of invasive species removal and restoration. So we're looking at an approximately just under 12,000 square foot area within the buffer zone and on the coastal bank, where we're proposing to remove knotweed, Asiatic bittersweet, shrub honeysuckle, vine honeysuckle, restore with native vegetation. And in addition to that, we're proposing to remove 770 square feet of lawn directly abutting the coastal bank area to provide some vegetated buffer between the lawn and the top of the coastal bank. We're proposing that for a width that allows for access and circulation around the deck. So we're providing some space for property owners to walk around the proposed deck. And then there is a fairly level area of usable space for them on the eastern side that we're proposing to keep as fescue clover lawn to just allow some recreation area. The front of the property from the street leading down to the house is quite steep. There's not a lot of area for recreation in that location. In addition to that, we are proposing to put in-ground timber risers in the area of the gravel pathway leading down to the slope. There's two functions for this. One is to provide safe access for the property owners down to the set of stairs. And the other is to try and mitigate for some of that erosion, to slow some of that water down. The timbers will basically act as water bars and redirect water into the vegetated areas on either side to help slow that down and prevent a deeper gully forming down that middle of that gravel pathway. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposed restoration efforts and the creation of the vegetative buffer, as well as the in-ground timber risers.
All right, thank you, Teresa and David. Opening it up.
I just want to step in for 1 second. This is Jim Shanahan. I just wanted to let you guys know that both Jim and Lisa are on the call. So if there's any questions you have for us as the homeowners, we're happy to answer.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Bob.
Okay, I think, Teresa, I think the planting is acceptable. However, when I was there the other day, I noticed that it's like kind of like a funnel effect. All the storm water, like you say, runs down to that path, and that it has created that gully in the pea stone. But is there any way you can put a drain in the grass area at the top, at the top of the path to catch all that excess water before it has a chance to even go, into those step areas?
We probably could. I'd like to open that to David Clark and see if he has any thoughts on that as far as putting a drain in the lawn area, if that would be helpful from an engineering perspective.
David Clark here. Certainly a yard drain would be beneficial. It would require a little more excavation than I think what Teresa's proposing for removal of lawn and whatnot. But I'll work with Teresa on this. The easiest way is to put in a yard drain, but we might be able to work the grades and create a low spot there. So we could detain the water at the top of the bank and infiltrate through the vegetation rather than putting it into a subsurface drain. I think there's enough lawn area and to be removed, as well as we're probably going to disturb some lawn area doing that work. So I think it's a good opportunity to tweak the grades and create a low spot at the top to catch that sheet flow over the lawn.
Yeah, I think what is happening is, the rain events keep getting more and more extreme. And after the last, I think, 3 in a row we had in September, it created that problem. And that pea stone is all the way down, traveled all the way down the stairs and down to the bottom of the stairs, and it's all over the edge of that bank, Muddy Creek bank. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about was that area along Muddy Creek. It's pretty eroded. There's probably about 20-foot section that has been all eroded, and the sonotubes from the stairway are exposed at the bottom of the stairway. So I'd like to see that erosion and taken care of, and the I think the 2 kayaks are on the ground there too. So those could be stored up above in a rack somewhere. So there's a major issue down at the bottom of the base of the along Muddy Creek. That's what I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Janet. Janet is not There you are. I don't
There
see
I
you, but I hear you. Okay.
I had a coughing fit a few minutes ago, so I had to turn everything off.
Okay.
I have a couple of just a quick clarification questions for David. Looking at the coverage table, I'm trying to understand why in the 50, we're looking at the existing dwelling declining from 982 square feet to 577. If they're putting an addition on the house, how is there a reduction in coverage?
Sorry, I was muted. There's so in the chart from the 0 to 50, see the existing dwelling to remain 577, then 2 lines below it, the proposed addition 716. So the total of that is what just shy of 1,300. So it is going up in the no disturb zone.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's why
Yeah.
The part remaining didn't look like it was going to decrease. The part remaining is the same, should have been the same, I would think. And then the addition adding on to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what that shows is basically the existing dwelling to remain is less the 2-car garage. Because that's getting removed, and then we're putting
Okay.
716
Can't count it
back.
twice.
Okay, I did figure out with it that since the project's replacing the gravel driveway with the structure, I worked out how those reductions and additions balanced each other out. My question is, and maybe Mr. Shanahan can address this since he's here, is I look at this and I'm concerned right away that does this project leave them enough room for parking? Or is the parking area going to have to be expanded in order to provide turnaround? And then the second question is that, are they going to want to build a garage someday?
So this is Jim Shanahan. To answer your question, so the parking, we're hoping that we do have enough parking for at least 4 cars in the driveway and possibly a 5th. We did discuss if we did need to, put in additional parking, this would be in an area in the front of the house that we did look at, but we were hoping to not have to disturb that front of the house. So that was sort of our mindset, to be able to have at least 4 minimum, possibly 5 cars in the driveway with the existing, with the existing plan that we proposed. And then the second question that you had was, in the future, will we want to add a garage? Ideally that would be wonderful, but I don't think we have enough room on the property to be able to do it. So, what my wife and I have discussed is the living space is more important than a garage at this point, seeing that we've actually never used the garage for a parking vehicle. It's only been used for storage. So.
Okay, got that. And then I just want to say that I think that the proposed mitigation, I'm pleased to see it taking the form of the creation of a good vegetative buffer strip along the top of that bank, which is it needs, because there's nothing there now, and what looks like is supposed to be lawn in the back is just kind of a weedy mix. So do I assume that the rest of the lawn area that will remain in the back outside of the created buffer strip will be a fescue seed mix that will improve what's there now?
That's correct. Yes, we do a fescue clover mix. Yes.
Okay. That plus the 770-ish square feet of the mitigation along the top there.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. What is the length of the run of the dug-in steps, Teresa? How long is that run going to go?
I can measure that for you quickly and get you an answer in just a minute. Okay. And then I also am wondering if it would be possible to address Commissioner Del Vecchio's questions about the bank at the river. So I'm looking at photographs that I took of that area out in July. I think partially what's happening here is obviously as the river has changed, We're seeing a dieback of vegetation along the edges of the river as that tidal area has increased. So I think a lot of what we're seeing on the changes on the edge of that river is based on the new tidal range and the vegetation is naturally dying back as that river as the riverbank increases. So I think that's part of that. So as far as addressing that, I think that's part of the natural dynamic system that needs to find some equilibrium and will over time. But I'm not sure that there's anything specific that we could do down there. There's a bunch of pitch pines at the edge of that bank that are falling, that have definitely succumbed to just exposure to the tidal range. And there's a bunch of debris at the edge, and as we're seeing all along the edges of the river, all the way up through, we've got an increase in basically muddy bank at the edges of Muddy River. That's a result of the tidal range increase in the vegetation naturally finding its own equilibrium there. But I will also get that measurement for you, Janet.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Bob has a new hand up.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to Teresa if I could.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's not only vegetation, Teresa, but that whole area is eroded right out, and so the soil is just missing from that whole area. It's probably about a 20-foot section by about 10 feet wide, right up to the stairs. And again, the sonotubes are exposed. So there's definitely an issue there. I don't know whether it's the water coming down the stairs that has created that over time, or something else has created it, with movement or traffic, foot traffic or what have you.
Okay.
It's definitely an issue there.
Okay, I'm definitely going to investigate the sonotube exposure further, but that was just a general observation and looking up and down the bank. So my suspicion is it's a mixture of all of those things that you just brought up, Bob. Yes.
Okay.
All right, and we'll see how we can address that. Thank you.
Good enough. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll go. I echoed some of the comments already made. Teresa, just remind me, do you intend to have demarcation for the VBS?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
The question is,
Say that. Could you repeat that question?
Are you
Bob?
going to have? I can't remember if your plan calls for demarcating the edge of the mitigation area, either on the upland side or on the downland side.
Okay, on the vegetated buffer strip. I mean, that's
Right.
Certainly, absolutely. I don't know if we specifically called that out in this plan, but absolutely, we could do that. That's no issue. Yeah.
I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Just so everyone for all time knows that there's something different about it.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a treacherous. I understand why you want the stairs at the top of the bank there. It's a treacherous journey down there, so it's obvious that you need it. The applicant needs it. I don't think that there was any detail on how the stairs would be constructed. Sometimes we see that, some sort of profiles or description. In other words, what will be in between the treads? Will it be gravel? If so, what kind of gravel? Or no gravel? Or will it be pavers, or will it be just grass or whatever?
We can provide that detail, and I definitely would like to work with David on that to also address the erosion issue. So I will.
All part and parcel of the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, we
Yeah.
can provide that.
Now, Bob mentioned the boats. I observed what I thought was a canoe or kayaks on the ground down on the river, and sort of, it looks like they're floating around on the marsh grass there as the tide goes up and down. So obviously that's something that we don't like to see. Just wonder whether or not you can put some thoughts together on how that could be made not to happen again. Whether that would take the place of a rack of some kind or whatever solutions you can come up with. Yeah, we do have regulations against of that sort of thing.
I think we should look at kayak rack and also in consideration of Commissioner Del Vecchio's concerns and look at that all together.
I agree. Yeah, but it's just an issue. It struck both Bob and myself, and maybe others, that that's not something we want. Yeah, so I guess that's really it. You have lots of questions about the stairs. I don't know if you're maybe, or would you consider a ring guard to capture the water. I don't know. Another option. Sometimes we see. I guess that's really all I had. Anybody? I think everyone's said their piece. Who's going to say something? So you've heard the questions that we have. It looks like we'll need to continue it. How long would you need?
It's David Clark here. This has to go to Zoning Board of Appeals, and I don't know if we got anything from Building Department on when that hearing is. I thought Bill Riley was going to be tuning in, but so
It's
I don't know.
November
Yep.
4th.
I couldn't hear that. It dropped out.
November 4th.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have the work session on November 3rd, so it looks like probably November 10th. Unless you want this done October 27th.
I don't know.
I think we could come back. I think we could have I think we could have the answers to your questions by the 27th, if it's possible to continue. And I suppose if there's additional information we need, we could request an additional continuance at that time. But I feel confident that we can get some of the answers and come up with some of these solutions.
It's fine with me.
Okay.
All right, so October 27th is when we're looking for the continuance.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 225 Countryside Drive to October 27, 2021.
Williams, second.
Roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next notice of intent is 136 Bucks Creek Road, Howard Meshnick, trustee, and Leslie Roth, trustee, map 8B, parcel S51. Again, last I checked, this did not have an SE number. This is for demolition of an existing dwelling within land subject to coastal storm flowage and construction of a new dwelling within 50 feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Hello, David Clark again.
Oh yes, once again.
So this is a demolition rebuild existing house. I believe the house was built probably in the early 60s. Pretty much the whole lot has been developed for residential use. There's some existing trees, but the understory is pretty much gone except for the very northeast corner of the property. The resource areas are the floodplain. We also have Bucks Creek, but we're more than 100 feet from the edge of the salt marsh to Bucks Creek with any of the site alterations, with the exception of some of the mitigation plantings that are proposed. So the existing house is partially within the floodplain. The driveway off of Indian Trail provides a direct path for flood waters into the garage, the drive under garage. So in the demolition and the rebuild, we're pulling the house back away from the floodplain line so that no portion of the dwelling will be in the floodplain, with the exception of a tiny corner of the deck, which is cantilevered over the line. So the post supporting that portion of the deck is above the base flood elevation. We'll no longer have a drive-under garage, obviously, so the existing driveway, the asphalt driveway off of Indian Trail, will be removed in its entirety and replaced with a shell tracks, basically, for additional parking. Unfortunately, when the Meshniks bought the property, the septic system was immediately upgraded, so that will have to be removed and replaced to the southeast corner of the property. The house is bigger than the house that was there, and a majority of the property, though, is the slope is less than 10-to-1, so there is no coastal bank. There's some areas immediately adjacent to the house where obviously the area was regraded when the house was built that is slightly steeper than 10-to-1. But basically, for the most part, there is no coastal bank on this property, so we're pretty much dealing with just the floodplain as a resource area. This does have to go to Zoning Board of Appeals. It's been filed, and planning staff has reviewed it, and we're over on the building coverage, so there's going to be a revision to this plan, reducing the size of the house by, I think, 28 square feet, because we're limited under the bylaw to 2,800 square feet. So there'll be a slight change to the site plan, but we haven't received the new footprint yet from the architect.
David, I talked to Sarah last week, and she had mentioned that even though the deck is cantilevered, it's somewhat in the flood zone, so it makes the whole dwelling applicable to flood zone. So in the reduction, is the deck going to be moved a little bit to?
Yeah, I don't agree with her interpretation because there's nothing in the building code or FEMA regulations that state that. It's all about whether any portion of the building has contact with floodwaters. So the floodplain is a plane, not looking at it plan view. But the architect, I believe, will show plans to the Zoning Board of Appeals that the deck is not physically connected to the house. Personally, I don't feel they have to go to those extents, but they're willing, the Meshniks are willing to do that not to create a controversy with the zoning board. So because the deck will not be physically attached to the house, there will be that required separation between the two structures. So Teresa, I believe, is on board for the mitigation plantings. And also Andrew Garrelay, the landscape architect, is also on board to talk about their two plans. So I don't know who you want to hear from first.
It's up to you.
Teresa?
Okay,
Teresa's ready.
sure. I'm here. So I just quickly go over what we're finding on the site, just from site analysis. There are several pitch pine trees located throughout. It's a mainly lawn area completely surrounding the house, as David pointed out, with a handful of pitch pine trees spotted throughout the lawn on the western side of the house, and then there's several oaks on the eastern side of the house. We did note in the lawn area it's being mowed, but we did see signs of asters and bearberry observed, scrub oak scattered throughout the lawn, as well as privet and yew shrubs. There are several eastern red cedars and Leland cypress trees located along the perimeter of the yard on the north side. There are two previously formerly maintained gardens that have been completely overtaken by invasive vegetation on the south side of the property. And we see a similar plant matrix on the north side of the property with English ivy, Asiatic bittersweet shrub, honeysuckle, mugwort, periwinkle, privet, and autumn olive. Native species that we located on site include beach plum, bayberry, winged sumac, and some American holly, as well as greenbrier, which is located pretty much throughout the entire area. So what we're proposing to do on this plan is twofold. We're proposing to eliminate approximately 4,800 square feet of existing lawn, and transform that back into native vegetation planting. And then we're proposing to remove and manage 1,185 square feet of invasive vegetation and replant that with native vegetation, including pitch pine, oaks, summer sweet, inkberry holly, winterberry holly, and bayberry, along with switchgrass and some species of native wildflowers. There are some pitch pine trees that are they're either in very poor shape. They've been pruned previously on the southwestern portion of the property. If you had an opportunity to go out and see them, there's several of them that are just completely infested with turpentine beetle. They're small caliber sized trees. They've been cut over time. We are proposing to remove those, as well as a few of the pitch pines that are located very close to the dwelling, which are, again, completely infested with turpentine beetle. You can see in the upper and lower left-hand side of the screen right now, leaning towards the house. They're covered with English ivy. They're infested with turpentine beetle. They're in very poor shape. I believe definitely are hazardous to the dwelling currently, and at least two of them should be removed.
On the balances too.
With that, we are proposing though to mitigate for the removal of those trees with additional pitch pines and white oak planted on just to the south of the dwelling, and then again on the north side of the dwelling. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposed really restoration, removal of lawn and restoration of the property.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Is it Andrew? Yeah. Do you have anything prepared to say, or are you just here for questions if needed?
I'm just here for questions. If you want anything explained, I'll be happy to do so.
Okay.
I think it's mostly explained already.
Yep. All right. I think maybe I'll just take my turn going first here, since. So as I count it, Teresa, I guess there are 8 pitch pines coming out. And
That's correct. Eight pitch pines are proposed for removal. Yes.
And you're proposing to plant 3 pitch pines and 1 white oak.
Correct. We're proposing to plant 4 additional trees, as well as the shrub species.
Right.
And meadow area.
Mm-hmm. Is there? Well, normally this is kind of an odd property in that you're basically don't have a buffer zone. You have a floodplain. So
correct.
Some of the requirements that we normally, we can easily talk about when it comes to a buffer zone, we can't so easily talk about it here. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you are offering mitigation as if it were a buffer zone in terms of coming up with your calculations.
I think that our goal is to improve wildlife habitat value, to reduce the amount of lawn in the area. The amount of lawn that's currently existing here isn't necessary. The plant matrix is mainly invasive or lawn, or like I said, these degraded pitch pine trees. So really the Meshnick's goals were just to reduce the amount of lawn. They would like to maintain, there's some lawn area you can see right around the elevation 6 in the northwestern side of the property. That's a more level area that they'd like to remain as a fescue clover lawn, just to provide some recreation area to put up a volleyball net or have a wiffle ball game or something. But otherwise, the idea was to remove as much turf as we possibly could and restore with native vegetation, just as an overall improvement to the property.
Mm-hmm. You don't have an official view corridor depicted on the plans. So you're not seeking something at least official.
No, I mean, they have, if you've been able to get out there and stand up on the deck, there's a pretty nice view
Pretty nice
existing,
view.
so we're
Yes,
not
it's
proposing
pretty
to.
nice, yeah. But
Yes,
by
enhance
removing,
it.
go ahead.
If anything, some of the vegetation, the woody vegetation that we're proposing will actually benefit from a screening perspective. Several cars park along just outside of that fenced area. And so some of this vegetation will benefit by screening the parked cars from the property.
Right. But in effect, by taking out the 8 pines, the view becomes better. Almost vista-like. I mean, you could argue, you could make that case.
You could make that case. I would say, and there are a number of pines that are remaining. I would say the view improvements with the pines being removed on the more westerly side will actually be for abutting properties. So properties to the east up Bucks Creek Road. I think they'll benefit from some vista improvement from this. Really, the trees that are directly around the dwelling right now are truly, I mean, all of these trees are in really poor shape. They really are hazard trees. But yes, if anything, those trees on that south side, southwestern side, may benefit neighbors across the street or up Bucks Creek Road on the other side of Bucks Creek Road. But that's not the goal of this project overall. The goal of the project is to improve the property.
Yeah, I will agree that some of those large pitch pines that are close to what would be the new deck are large and leaning towards the dwelling, and yeah, I can understand the interest in having those taken away. I was just wondering whether or not there is a way to get closer to a 1-for-1 replacement of trees on this property.
Sure. I mean, I think we could certainly add some more trees. And yes, I think we could add a couple more trees is the answer.
Good. Thank you. Is there, I don't know, this is maybe well, I know, I think I want to ask that question. So you've already said that the lawn is going to remain Cape Cod, no irrigation, fertilizers, etc. And yeah, overall, I think it's only the trees in my mind that are the thing that leap out. So I will ask this. On north of the, I don't know which direction we're looking at, but if you're standing and looking at the house from the water to the left, along that side of the house, there's a neighbor, an adjoining neighbor. It looks like he or she or they have a view from their house all the way through this applicant's property, all the way to the water. I'm just wondering whether or not they had a view easement or anything like that, because if, obviously if we planted trees in their view, they probably would be upset. I don't know if that's come up in your analysis.
David, do you want to speak to that?
Only in the context of, placement of more trees, whether that is an option in that area.
Yes, well, I can just say generally, in speaking to the Meshnicks, I think there's an opportunity to plant potentially more trees on the south side of the proposed patio and deck. And we are planting trees along the north side. We definitely don't want to interfere with that existing view across this property. I think that's the Meshnicks are not interested in blocking anybody's existing view along the edge of the property, but we could probably tuck some trees in on the eastern side of the driveway coming in when we do the invasive species removal. There are several cedar trees already located in that area, so we may be able to add another tree up in that area as well. And we're adding trees along the northwestern kind of property line. There's a couple of Leland cypress, large Leland cypress. They're non-native, but they're non-invasive, and they do provide cover habitat, and they're fine. They're healthy. They're So we aren't proposing to remove those. We'd propose to leave those in place.
Right.
And then we're proposing to plant trees just to the west of those Leland cypress trees. So I think we can put in a few more trees and not block those views for the neighbor to the east.
Right. I have one more question. That's for Andrew, and that is, can you estimate the percentage of the plants that you're responsible for? I guess we'll call them foundation plants. That are, what percentage of those, if any, are native?
No, they're not native.
None of them are native.
They're ornamental. They're ornamental plantings.
Okay. Any opportunities to make that go our direction a little bit?
Yes, I could make some changes on that.
There are
Lots-
34 winter berries. that
Yeah,
are-
they're along the
those
they're
are
along
native.
the fence line. As part of it's in along the fence line where Teresa's plantings are as well. They're along that fence line to screen the cars that park there. So they're not around the foundation. Way to the west, to the left side. See them there? That's right along the fence line to screen the cars, to be maintained at 4 feet. So it's a hedge of winterberry there. But we can certainly, I've got some Japanese holly. We can switch those out for inkberry without any difficulty. And I think I could make some changes to the catmint and the daylilies to help that out. And maybe we can do a switchgrass instead of the maiden grass.
It would be appreciated, and you could talk to your clients about the benefits of having native plants around the house, the pollinators that they will attract, the care that they won't need, and the diversity they will add.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right, I think that's what I have, Janet.
Okay, thanks, Bob. I guess I'm listening to all this and thinking about all of these details, and I share some of Bob's concerns about some of the trees that seem slated for removal, and some that are not, that appear to me at least to be in even worse shape, and I don't quite understand why some are being taken out and not others. But the confusion is about the context in which we're having this conversation. And it starts with the reference in the project to construction of a new dwelling within 50 feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage, which we all know there is no buffer zone to that. So I don't know what the reference to within the 50 feet means. And if as the narrative and David has explained, the new dwelling is totally outside of the flood zone, why are we having this conversation? What is the resource area that is being impacted by the construction of this house? Or is it that the house itself being out of the flood zone is not the project, but the project instead is the landscape project, which then wouldn't be in mitigation for anything if there's no impact to a resource area? I'm not sure I'm explaining all this clearly, but it reveals the extent to which it's got my head spinning a little bit.
Completely understandable. And I understand where you're coming from. I looked at it when developing the narrative, is that if we had just said all we're doing is removing a house, removing a driveway, and putting in landscaping, a lot of the questions would be about, well, what about the proposed house? So that's that's the reason why I phrased it that way. I know there's no buffer zone to the floodplain, and the house is outside outside the floodplain. But the existing house is in the floodplain, and we're taking that down, and we're doing work within the floodplain. So that's why we filed a notice of intent. And I think we also did an alternatives analysis because we're altering the floodplain. But you're correct. The house is outside the floodplain. Technically, there's no buffer zone. So
So the invasive management and the restoration of the native plants and the creation of the new meadow and part of the lawn is not really a mitigation project. It's a voluntary restoration project, or is it?
Correct. No, yes. Sorry, David, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yes,
no.
this is voluntary. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not mitigation, it's a restoration, because
That's correct.
it's a lens through which we look at whether it's one or the other makes some difference. Okay, so David, then back to your site plan, under the coverage table at the top, conservation coverage, your proposed dwelling, proposed deck, patio stairs, driveways, blah, blah, is 6,612 square feet. That's not within a conservation area, right?
Yeah, we're so used to having so much of the property within your jurisdiction. I can break that out as to what's in the floodplain, so that it's crystal clear. But that's basically treating the whole site as within your jurisdiction.
Right, right. But only about half of the site is within, and in fact, all of the area where the work's going to be done is outside of jurisdiction, with a very few exceptions of small areas.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that context, because that was a little bit of a struggle. With that said, I will underscore Bob's point, even though it's a voluntary restoration project. When native trees are coming out, they should be replaced on a 1-to-1 ratio. Whatever is appropriate for planting in the coastal floodplain, maybe pitch pines, maybe something else. But I would also, if you're going to be in the area where you're planning the mitigation, or not the restoration zone, on the south side, Teresa, I'd ask you to take a look at the pitch pines over there. They are covered in English ivy and they are leaning. You may want to have another thought about whether they are candidates for, I mean, I hate to suggest a removal of a tree, but
what are you saying, Janet?
replacement of something else, because they don't look like they're in worse shape than the ones that had the blue tags on them.
Okay, I will take a look at that. Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna go digest everything that David just told me and put my hand down and shut up for a little while. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, Bob.
Yes, Bob. Yeah, so I guess you guys are aware that the winterberry hedge and the restoration planting, that has to be worked out. So because Teresa's planting, I think, overlaps the winterberry planting, correct?
I will work that out with Andrew.
Yeah. Okay. And I had a question about the planting on the north side, where the invasives will be removed and the additional plants you're going to be putting in, Teresa. Next to that, the driveway, there's a patch of bittersweet north, just to the, if you're looking at the plan, just to the right of the driveway entrance.
Yes.
You're not planning on doing anything to that?
No, that should be removed. So that area should be shaded. I think when this plan was shaded, it was shaded up to the edge of the property line. But that area that's showing the outline of the existing vegetation,
yes.
You can see there's the cedar trees. That should all be shaded. That will also be removed.
All right, because otherwise that would just kind of spread
100%.
into a new area. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I had some concerns about those 5 pitch pines and that little grove there, but you think they're not healthy, correct?
They're not, and they've been cut in the past. They're small caliber sized trees. I don't think they're providing their, I can share some other pictures of them. They're really not providing much in the way of habitat. frankly, I think a dense thicket of shrubs is going to provide better wildlife habitat than those scraggly, poorly formed pitch pines that are infested with turpentine beetle and have been cut in the past.
Yeah, okay. I think those were my only concerns. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Well, I think we know we're continuing. We have a variety of questions and a number of things you've already noted that you'll come back with. I'm not going to go over them all, but it's good to get clear on the fundamental conundrum, which is, what is this project? I think we're getting to it. I do appreciate the amount of I won't call it mitigation, but restoration that's being proposed for this property. That's I'm saying that's a good thing. And anyway, I look forward to your revisions. The only question now is when would you want to bring them back?
David Clark here. We had a deadline of this afternoon to submit a revised plan to planning for the ZBA hearing. We still don't have the revised footprint. So it looks like we're going to be on for the first meeting in November with zoning board. So I don't think there's any issues with continuing to with your first meeting in November at this point.
So that would be November 10th.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, you ready, Bob?
We're ready.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 136 Bucks Creek Road to November 10th, 2021.
Williams, second.
Roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Thank you all and see you then.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have 53 Raccoon Run, Ann and Hugh Sampson, map 6J, parcel 17A -D14. Again, this one, I haven't seen an SE number. Proposed garage and land management plan. And we're also going to go ahead and open 53 Raccoon Run for a certificate of compliance for same people, SE 10-2886, which was construction of the new dwelling, deck, driveway, septic system, and utilities. So procedurally, I would say that we do the notice of intent first, see what changes we may want with the application. And once we get to the point that we are willing to, if we are willing to order or issue an order of conditions, then we would do the certificate of compliance as well, because there's a couple things that were wrong with the certificate of compliance that the new NOI is addressing. So it's a little convoluted, but so I would say once we are ready to draft an order, we could issue or approve the COC at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I think most of my confusion, I do have confusion, and hopefully it gets fixed about that COC, as much as I do have questions about the actual NOI. So, okay, let's try it that way.
Alrighty,
So,
good afternoon. For the record, Thad
hello.
Eldred,
Hello,
East
Thad.
Southeast. Teresa Sprague is here with me. So as Nikki has mentioned, there were a few things out of sorts from the previous certificate of, or previous order of conditions. We have a shed that was installed, a few steps that were put in, a few downspouts that were leading out towards the wetland. The contractor is no longer a contractor, so he had done things, finished it off, and obviously didn't complete the process. Since then, Teresa and her crew have gone out and completed the plantings. And before we get into how to remedy the drainage, and we want to remedy the drainage, the shed and the steps under the new notice of intent, just so it's under a valid permit when we do those efforts. So the resource areas out here, we have salt marsh leading up to floodplain, leading up to coastal bank. The existing home was proposed 50 feet from the top of the bank. It's just shy of that now. With the change in the floodplain, it changed the coastal bank a little bit. The proposal is to add a garage to the south of the structure, taking the current garage and making it into a family room. The garage is used for storage, so we're not worried about maneuverability in and out of it. With that, we're proposing adequate mitigation. Teresa can certainly speak to it. We do know that we have a couple of revisions when we were at the on-site. We noted we want to change how that drainage pipe is going to maneuver and where that bioretention basin is located, since we sited it right on top of a large tree. With that, if Teresa has anything.
Sure.
Just to be clear, that there was no on-site. I guess it was a conversation with Nikki on site.
Yes, I'm sorry. The
Okay.
agent was kind enough to meet us on site and review.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got, our plan is showing two different colored areas. One is a tanner color, and that is the area of previously proposed and required mitigation, the majority of which was completed when the house was constructed. Some of the plants were lost, they didn't survive, and it appears that some were not planted at all. And that area has since been planted to be in compliance with the approved planting plan when the new house was constructed. That's what's showing in tan. The areas that we're showing in a greener color are what we're proposing for mitigation for the new project. So what we have on site currently is, as you can see, it's a very steeply sloping site down to the top of the bank. Within the majority of the house is located within the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone. The area, the slope heading on the western side of the house heading down towards the salt marsh is planted, currently consists mainly of sweet fern with switchgrass. And then there were some other previously planted native and early successional species. The coastal bank itself is established with a pitch pine oak canopy along with black cherry trees. On the southern side, as we get down to the edge of the marsh, we have marsh elder and other herbaceous species in the ground cover layer. The northern side of the property, the area that we're shaded in green, consists of some tall shrubs, some native shrubs, including some healthy, beautiful high bush blueberry and viburnums, but it's quite heavily invaded with undesirable invasive species, including English ivy, bittersweet, shrub honeysuckle, vine honeysuckle, porcelain berry, Japanese barberry, multiflora rose, autumn olive, and then a species that's becoming more and more prolific here on the Cape, which we had not seen previously in heavy amounts, but we are currently seeing, which is glossy buckthorn, which has been a huge problem for invasive plants off Cape, and we're starting to find more and more of it here, unfortunately. In addition to that, there's a significant amount of Japanese holly, Ilex crenata. It's not currently listed as an invasive species in Massachusetts, but it is a species of concern for us as we're finding it more and more often in areas that are currently unmanaged, naturalized areas and unmanaged areas. We also have a significant amount of greenbrier, which is typical to most all of these properties, along with white poplar saplings located in the southernmost portion of the property. So I believe they're invading the property from areas off property. What we're proposing here is to manage the invasive vegetation. So the total area of mitigation for the proposed structure is 2,273 square feet, of which 1,500 square feet is invasive plant management, And then the additional square footage is the areas that you see on the southern portion of the property. And I don't think Thad really discussed the land swap that's happening there. But we are proposing there's an area that's mainly unvegetated or has sort of been a debris dumping ground that previously was not part of this property and is now been made part of this property for the land swap for the garage. We're proposing to vegetate that area, and that is showing some drainage in there to help manage the stormwater and redirect those downspouts that are currently daylighting onto the bank itself. So we're looking at, there's a total of 658 square feet of new construction that includes the garage as well as the shed that is located just within the 100-foot buffer zone on the southern portion of the property. Yep, Nikki's circling it there. And then there's a set of in-ground timber risers just to the north of the deck that were installed to allow access down that slope. The existing in-ground timbers that are on the northwestern portion of the property down to the salt marsh were existing. They were not added. They had been existing previously. So we've got 658 square feet of new construction, including the garage, the previously installed shed, the timber steps. There's approximately 229 square feet of mitigation planting that was required previously that will be disturbed and have to be displaced because of the garage construction. So you can see where that garage is proposed, and we have a area that's shaded in tan in that area. So that vegetation will be replaced as part of the total 2,273 square feet of mitigation that we're proposing. I think the vegetation that we're proposing on site is mainly the vegetation that we're seeing really surviving and thriving on this site, which is northern bayberry and arrowwood viburnum are the shrub species that are doing the best on this site and that we're proposing to plant. With that, I'm happy to answer any question about the proposed mitigation.
Teresa, the vegetation that was getting removed, was that the oaks and such that weren't even doing well in the first place?
It's the spruce trees that were required as part of the previous mitigation planting. They're just below that existing retaining wall. One of them is in decent shape and the other two are in really poor condition. There is an oak tree that's existing. I don't believe that one has to be displaced. And then there are several tupelo trees that are part of the original planting that will remain intact.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Someone trying to say something? Okay.
Yes, this is Ann Sampson. We are here if you have any questions that you want to ask us.
Okay, you're the owner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, keeping track of all the square feet of mitigation, you know, then and now and redoing now and et cetera. I'm hoping that maybe Nikki, you have a handle on it. I don't, but we're gonna proceed as if we understand that for the moment, and maybe it'll all come out. So just be sure I got it, a little bit of it. The stuff that's in darker green, new mitigation. Stuff that's in sort of a brownish green is what was the previous mitigation. And as I walked around the property, it looked to me like the mitigation between the water and the house, I don't know if you would agree with me, Teresa, but it was invaded by what looked like a lot of grasses, maybe grasses from the lawn above.
It's switchgrass, actually.
Switchgrass.
Yes,
Okay.
And that was part of the original planting plan that was proposed. I apologize, I forget what year the house was reconstructed, but that was part of the mitigation plan that was approved at that time.
Okay, so that's just sort of all right. So it's not escapees. It was supposed to be there, but it looks a bit overgrown.
So switchgrass is, I mean, it's a fantastic native grass. It's very deep rooted. The root system's, 12, 16, 20 feet deep. It provides high wildlife habitat value. I don't want to say it can be aggressive because that's not fair, but it will certainly take advantage and grow in and fill in areas. So it has certainly filled in the gaps. There were other species that were proposed in that area that maybe the switchgrass outcompeted. The sweet fern has spread. The sweet fern is far greater in numbers than what was originally proposed on the mitigation plan when the house was reconstructed. So between the sweet fern and the switchgrass, that bank is really well vegetated, and we didn't want to disturb it any further by planting any other. We just took advantage of gaps where some of the previous mitigation planting either hadn't made it or maybe wasn't planted. It was hard to tell at this point. It's been such a long time since that original mitigation planting was completed. So we just ensured that we did make some species changes. For instance, high bush blueberry was proposed in the previous mitigation plan. Our experience is that blueberries that are currently available commercially just are not very hardy. So we switched that out with black chokeberry in areas where those blueberries didn't make it. But that bank is really well vegetated right now.
Okay,
It's
so
very stable.
It looks to you as if you would hope it looks. Okay. Just want to make sure that it wasn't.
It looks to me as
I
it was
looking at.
designed to be under the previous plan, yes.
Okay, all right. I guess that project was about 8 years ago. Was it-
2013, 2014.
Yeah. Okay. I noticed, Teresa, I guess I'm talking here, but I don't see a hand up, so I'll keep talking for the moment. And I noticed that well, I guess you've already mentioned that your proposed mitigation consists only of viburnum and bayberry. And I think I understand from Nikki, that's because you thought that based on what's there and doing well, that is, you want more of that. Is that why? I mean, normally you provide a little more diversity in your mitigation design.
Yes, I mean, we could add some more diversity. Again, we could add some more black chokeberry in there. The bayberry and the viburnum are definitely the species that are doing really well on this site. There were several oaks that were proposed or were required under the previous mitigation plan, but the oaks on this site simply are not doing well. However, the tupelo trees are doing really well. So when we assessed what was missing from the previous plan, we noticed that several of the oaks didn't make it, and some of the oaks that are still there are not in great shape. But the tupelos were doing really, really well. So we replaced those oaks with tupelo trees that seem to be doing really well on the site.
Okay. Yeah, well, diversity is always good, as you know, the reasons why.
Of course.
I did notice looks like a mile of soaker hose encircling plant after plant all around. And I guess, is that from the original mitigation, or is that a more recent effort to try to keep things alive?
No, those are from the plants that we recently replaced based on the old approved mitigation plan.
I
so
see. You put
yes.
those in. Okay.
Put those in, correct.
All right. I'm going to stop for the moment because I have to get my thoughts in a little better shape. And Bob has his hand up.
Teresa, the blue spruce on the edge of the driveway there currently, I counted I thought I counted like 5 or so. Are there any healthy trees that could be possibly transplanted? I don't think they're too huge.
One of them is in pretty good shape, and I think it can be transplanted. The other two are, one is in really poor shape, and another one's throwing out a ton of cones. I don't know if you noticed that, Bob.
Yes.
And I see that as a sign for help. Is
Yeah.
that like, a last ditch effort to reproduce before it's, says, okay, see you later. But
Right.
I do believe that the one on the closest to, as you're coming up the driveway, closest to that shed, I think can be transplanted. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, even if we save one of them, I think that would be a benefit. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that it for you?
That's all I had, Bob.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
All right, Janet.
Yeah, I have a question for Thad. Thad, can you explain to me what is the, as you refer to it in the narrative, as the illicit drainage system that was installed that you also call unfortunate? What is wrong with it, and why is this, the plan, what you're proposing to do, going to fix it and help the resource area?
The previous order of conditions was explicit in stating that no drainage pipes are going to be headed towards the resource area. We recovered 3. So the proposal is to tie those together and put them into a drainage structure.
So wait, let me just interrupt a second. So there are 3 drainage pipes coming from the gutters that are, as I looked at it, they all look like they went right into the ground. Do they exit out into the resource area, or where?
They do. They daylight on the other side of the lawn, right over the top of the slope there.
Okay.
And they haven't caused any erosion issues below them. But in keeping with the original order, we want to tie those together and put them in something. As Dr. Bob has an affinity for the rain gardens, that's the direction that we've gone in. And we'll shift that rain garden around so it avoids that tree that's right in the middle of it.
Yeah, so the purple lines on your plan that show is that going to be a new proposed, where how you're going to redirect these pipes into a discharge point, whether it's a retention basin or a rain garden or whatever it's going to be?
Yes, so the light purple lines are the existing, and then the dark purple lines are the proposed.
Aha, I wondered about that. Okay, got it. But they all exit into this bioretention area.
Yes.
And what is the nature of the overflow structure that is to be part of that?
Just an ABS pipe. So a corrugated plastic pipe. They cut some slits in the side of it, put some filter fabric around it. And it's just to make sure that if the basin overflows, it's not going to send gallons of water down the slope to cause erosion. It gets into the ground. Generally, the pipe is set about a foot above grade so that the basin itself has to fill, and then the pipe will fill.
How deep will this basin, is it going to be designed to be?
Oh, 4 feet, something short, something shallow.
Okay. And so I have noticed that, yeah, again, a couple of different references. Are you thinking about planting it with, is it going to be part of the planting scheme done as a rain garden or a quasi rain garden? So it's planted with species that can handle the amount of flow that's going to be coming in there?
It is. It's mainly designed right now as Arrowwood viburnum, but given Commissioner Rawls' question about diversity, I think we could add some winterberry holly in here. They both do really well in areas that, potentially retain some water, so they are happy with wet feet, but they're happy in drought conditions as well. So those are a couple of shrub species that are preferred for rain garden areas.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. I did have another thought.
Can I give you this address right now? It's 2717 Annie.
Is someone speaking to the
We're all
commission?
writing.
Or someone speaking to someone else somewhere else?
Yep.
Yeah, I muted them.
Okay, good. You'll stop eavesdropping then. Teresa, is there a need with the mitigation, both existing and proposed? I mean, this is a general question I have: is that mitigation, existing and old, at risk from being encroached on by invasives outside of those areas? And if so, is there anything that could be done to help?
I think so. Definitely the invasive vegetation, and we've got some notes on our plan. It might be hard to read with the topo lines. I'm just noticing that. But the area to the north of the property, that's really important, I think, to remove the invasive vegetation and restore that with native vegetation. We have first of all, we have a good mix of native vegetation that was existing there previously that we want to protect, as well as the previous mitigation planting that was required. So that area in particular, and then on the southern area, we're at about 40% invasive up in that southern corner. So we're going to be managing that invasive vegetation and cleaning up that debris. It's vegetation debris, so it's just been an area where people had been dumping yard waste, et cetera, previously. So that's part of the cleanup and mitigation and help protect not only what we're proposing, but what had been previously required. Along the western edge, near the top of the bank and on the bank near the salt marsh, there are several large autumn olives that will be removed. They're kind of individual shrubs that are located in between, so we're not shading that in that darker green color necessarily, but any of the autumn olive, and there may be a handful of shrub honeysuckle in between the native vegetation that will be removed, and the native vegetation will be allowed to restore that area.
Okay, so the normal methods of trying to keep it pure.
Exactly.
Yeah. The just another. You mentioned a land swap. Did the land swap post-date the project, project that the COC is being requested for?
Yes, the land swap is at land court right now.
And is that the part? Well, let's see. We're not looking. Let me see what you're looking at. I'm looking at something. Yeah, that we're looking at the same thing.
Southwest of the garage.
Right. Okay. The part. So some of it's one color green, some of it's the other color green.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I got it.
But is the purpose of that land swap to provide sufficient setback to build a garage in this location?
Yes, it is.
Good question, Jen. Very good question. Yeah, we haven't really talked about the merits of the proposed. We focus 100% on the mitigation here, but I personally don't have any issues with what I think is a modest amount of increase for the mitigation that's being proposed. All right. So, any other questions, comments from anyone? We went over a few items. Teresa, I guess it's mostly in your camp.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
it
I'm
sounds
gonna
like sounds like you also need to revise plans for where the drainage is.
Yes.
Yeah, we will get revised plans in.
Okay. So when would you like to come back?
And could we have the list? What exactly are we revising? So we have the drainage, the stormwater location.
Well, you're right. There's not that much, is there? We're talking about. I asked about diversity of plantings. Teresa said she could do something there probably.
And I'll also add a note to transplant that spruce tree and a location on that.
Yeah, fairly minor things, I guess, relatively speaking.
So we can have those in within a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see why this couldn't go to our work session on the 3rd for an order. And then obviously they have to submit the small revisions beforehand, but.
Yeah, it would seem that way to me. If anybody has got a problem with it, doesn't sound like it.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we send 53 Raccoon Run to the work session on November 3rd, 2021 for an order of conditions.
William, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
And then just to be clear, we're fine with approving the COC at the 3rd, or on the 3rd as well, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, we don't have to vote on it at this point really, but
as long as there's no weirdness going on with the numbers, no double counting, no missing counting, and I'll have to sit down and actually work through that in my own head. But if all that comes out, yeah, I personally wouldn't see an issue with it.
Okay, I just want to give them a heads up if you're not thinking you're going to approve it and what they could do to get it approved.
Right. Well, we haven't really talked about the COC, but from my readings, it looks like an honest effort was made to remedy the sins that occurred.
Teresa has her hands up.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Teresa.
No, I just wanted to assure the commission that we took the approved mitigation plan from the 2013-2014 reconstruction of the house and literally went out and did a 1-for-1 plant count so that we had a specific plant count, and we can provide a list if the commission feels comfortable. We can provide this to Nikki of what we actually planted, what was missing from the previous mitigation plan, and we just put in the ground. Just to assure the commission that that anything that was missing, most likely because it just didn't survive over the years. And then if we made substitutions, what we substituted. We did discuss that at the on-site with Nikki, but we can provide a list of that for your review.
For assurance, yeah.
Yes.
And we trust you, Teresa.
Okay, thank you.
And I hope that when and if this project goes, is approved, that we seek the next COC before 8 years go by.
I'm sure the applicant will be on top of it.
Yes.
3 years is
3
years is recommended. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so we already voted to continue to the 3rd, so I think we are all set with that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we also already continued 53 Dune Drive. So now we are on to 604 Orleans Road, 604 Orleans Road Realty Trust, map 12J, parcel 12, SE 10-3507, demo of existing dwelling and rebuilding of a new dwelling.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering. The last time we talked about this, the commission had requests regarding the mitigation that was being proposed, and also had concerns about the rent station. The applicant engaged Keith Johnson, who was on the line, to prepare a mitigation plan and a narrative to deal with invasive species along the property line. Although I went out to the site and it looked like a lot of it was right on the fence, climbing up the fence, which is pretty easy to eradicate. And then regarding the rent station, what we're showing now is a small little rain garden to deal with whatever little runoff from that area. And Keith has provided a planting list of what should go in that area. The project has gone to the Zoning Board of Appeals and received approval. The other changes to the site plan that you see is the neighbor to the east wanted assurances that there'd be no changes in grade as a result of construction, with the exception, obviously, of the septic system. So what we added to the site plan were existing spot grades at the building corners and proposed spot grades. And if you look around the building, they're not changing. So the intent is not to alter the grades anywhere on the site except for the septic system. So that's fundamentally the changes of the site plan. And like I said, Keith is here to talk about the mitigation.
Okay. Do you have a presentation, Keith, or?
Hi, Keith Johnson, Billingsgate Land Management. That's kind of the presentation is basically the planting plan.
Okay,
There is I have a seed mix that's listed there with the species in it for both the rain garden and the mitigation area. So if there are any
okay.
additional questions,
Yeah, all right.
happy
Thank
to
you. And we'll just go ahead and just open it up for general questions from commissioners. Janet?
Thanks, Bob. Where's the rain garden? I don't see it located on the planting plan. Is it, where is it going to be?
It's
on
on,
the site plan.
it's on my site plan, Janet.
Aha, it's on your
It's
site,
just directly east of the rinse station.
the rinse station. Okay. Thank you. I know, I see it. I guess I had a general concern, and I'm not sure who the right person is so you're going to put this, take out the lawn and put in a grass and wildflower mix along with 5 eastern red cedars and 3 scrub oaks. And what I worry about is that while they're behind the bulkhead, they are still near or next to or below the historic mean water line. And I wonder what happens if in a storm surge situation, the water tops that bulkhead. Are these species capable of surviving being flooded in salt water?
I've been using this particular mix on coastal banks for the last 10 years and haven't had salt spray or those kind of issues with those plants. So I would suspect that they would be fine.
Have you ever had them inundated with any salt water?
I mean, the coastal bank wave run up, that kind of issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And no problem.
I mean, other than if there's erosion.
Yeah, well, that's a different problem. I'm talking about their
Yeah, it's a much different problem.
to handle being inundated by salt water. I
Yeah.
just didn't know whether oaks can do that. Okay. I'll make a finding of that. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Bob?
David, I just had a question about the shed. There was an existing shed on the property. I don't see any notes that will be removed.
Let me just check one thing. Yeah, it's not. 1 second.
I saw,
Yeah,
I was there, the shed is still there, but
Right, it will be removed, and it's not counted in our site coverage that zoning board approves, so it will be going. And and the condition would be fine.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
thank you, Bob. I finally found this house yesterday. I wasn't able to find it the first time, so thanks to Bob Delvecchio to give me the secret code. The rent station we talked about before, I assume that there will be no issue with us including our standard conditions prohibiting soaps and the like.
If that's what's required, we'll have no problems with it.
Okay. And other than that, I don't think I have anything else. I sort of share the same concerns that Janet has about the trees, but if the experience is that they tolerate salt, then we have to go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Regarding the cedars, I think the neighbor provided comment at the last meeting that this area is inundated quite a bit, and the existing cedars seem to be in relatively good shape.
Okay.
A majority of the lot, at least of the water side, is below the 10-year flood elevation. So this gets inundated quite a bit.
Okay. Well, that's comforting. All right. So I guess we would be ready. We have no changes, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we're ready for November 3rd for this one.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 604 Orleans Road to the work session for an order of conditions on November 3rd, 2021.
Williams, second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Thank you all. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have an amendment to an order of conditions for 110 Old Salt Works, Goodrich Chatham Realty Trust, map 13M, parcel 8-C25, SC 10-3263. Proposed modifications to the existing picket fence and creation of a 4-foot wide access footpath with a seasonal rollout walkway through the dune.
Good afternoon, Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
All right. So this is phase 2. We've already come before you with the letter to make sure that this was something that could be proceeded with through the amendment process. The proposal before you, as we said at the last meeting, is hopefully the last thing they're going to do on this property for some years to come. If not, we'll be filing a notice on the next thing. But this is essentially to get an access path out to the beach through the existing beach grass shown on the southern side of the property. And also to modify the portion of the fence, the picket fence that the homeowner tried to do 6-inch vertical slats. The dogs got out. So now we're going back to the more accepted method of the elevated off the ground 6 inches. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out why it is thought that the dogs won't dig under it. They're big dogs, right?
They're labs.
Yeah. Just, is it sand by and large? I mean, I couldn't get back there because it's a locked gate to the house.
Yeah, it is. It's sand by and large. It's a moving dune too. So as a matter of fact, the majority of the area that you see to the south where that path is going, about half of that used to be lawn. And about 10 years ago, they conceded to the fact that the dune kept migrating and moving, and the lawn got a lot smaller, and they moved that fence back. So I would assume it's just going to keep retreating to a point where the dune is going to continue to migrate, and the lawn will get smaller and smaller. So to answer your question, it is mainly dune in that area.
Yeah. So
I mean, I really don't want to we could put some sort of a, as I said in the last meeting, a concrete strip along the bottom of the fence to keep them from digging. That's what I had to do with my dogs. They dug under the fence and it was just lawn. So, but again, it's a lot harder for them to get under a 6-inch fence than it is to obviously something at head height where they're just walking straight through.
Mm-hmm. Well, I assume what's going to happen is that the sand will march toward the house and there will be no gap under the fence. Well,
I would assume, any of the animals that are in that area are going to be able to get through the fence, under the fence, and why they'd want to get inside that fence to see the 2 dogs is beyond me.
Right, right. Well, that's the whole, that is a separate issue,
Yeah. So, it's the best we can do with the situation that we have with the fence in that location. And again, as I said, we've already retreated actually a couple times. The second time was a much larger retreat. There's some good images on Google Earth of what it used to look like 10 years ago.
Okay, well, seems like, how a moving target, to say the least. Maybe anybody have questions, concerns about this? I mean, this is third time we've dealt with amendments, I think. Janet?
Just a quick question, Sean. Is this the kind of standard rollout map that we seen for dune crossings? It's seasonal and it will be taken out and put somewhere off the resource area?
Yeah, that is correct. It comes in sections, probably 10-foot sections that they just butt up and they just roll right up and roll right up. CBI has it and they've been using it for years to get their access out to the beach.
And this is 3 foot wide or 4? What is it? 3 foot?
4 feet wide, I believe.
Wide.
Yes, 4 feet.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'll just jump in here. If you're not going to talk about 4 feet, I forgot that was an issue for me. Why 4 feet?
I guess it could be 3 feet. I'm just looking at how wide 3 feet is. Yeah, I guess it could be 3 feet. I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, let's make it.
It's really just to grab, whatever you're going to be throwing in one of those beach chair wagons behind you that you're going to be, dragging behind. That's why those rollouts are so convenient.
Yeah. Continue. I'm sorry, Jen. Go ahead.
No, that was it. That was
all. Okay.
When you finish, we're good.
What dates would they be fine with for the order?
Well, I think
really
Bob's hand is up. We have another.
We have yeah, okay.
Yeah, Bob. Okay. I just have a couple of quick questions on the plan, Sean. There's some plugs, blue stem, poverty grass, Pennsylvania sedge. What would those? Are you planning on planting as well?
All those plantings were already previously approved as part of one of the previous amendments.
Okay.
So all those call outs are the mitigation for the previous work. They're just on the plan. Yep.
And at the end of the dune by the beach, there's probably about an 18-inch drop down to the beach from your proposed walkway. Do you think there'll be some erosion from the foot traffic?
Yeah, I would assume that as they walk down there would be some. It would probably just be an apron that would work its way around as foot traffic gets down to the beach. It would just move into like a dustpan flare out in that area.
But as you say, it's migrating, it's moving all the time and eroding naturally, huh?
It is. This is a very dynamic area, right on the point there of Fox Hill, and there's a lot of movement around there. Very dynamic. So, this could look a lot different in 5 years. The whole area.
Yeah. So there's no real need to kind of protect that edge then at this point.
Yeah, it's going to move. It's going to accrete. It's going to retreat. It's going to do what it's going to do.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. I guess that's it. I guess we're left with one minor change, 4 foot to 3 foot, which you could obviously send in.
Yeah, if you want to if I can make the revision on the plan and set it so that it reflects what you're going to write in the order, or.
Yeah, the plan does not specify what that is. It has the path shown. I don't think it says.
It says 4 feet somewhere in the application.
Does it say it right? Yeah, it may say in the letter or.
Yeah, but can you just add it to the plan that this is a seasonal rollout mat and not a permanent?
Yep.
Walkway?
Yeah, we can make that's easy enough.
Okay. And Nikki had asked about the time of year that you're looking for.
Your typical Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess.
Okay.
It would seem we're ready for to go to OCs.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 110 Old Salt Works to the work session for an order of conditions on November 3rd, 2021.
Williams, second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, looks like we're gonna make our 4:30 deadline. The
Room to
last,
spare.
yeah, the last one is certificate of compliance for 145 Pine Knoll Avenue, Anthony and Dawn Boynton, map 5C, parcel W1, SE 10-3096. This was for an after the fact filing. When the property owners purchased the house, they replaced an existing retaining wall and removed some trees. Callie went out previously, and I'm not 100% sure if some of the mitigation wasn't done or if some of it died off, but she wanted some replanting done, which has happened, and it's been in for a couple years. So the plantings were installed, they're doing well. Their retaining wall acts as a pretty good, area for them to say, this is where we stop using our yard. So it does keep them away from the plants and all that kind of stuff. So I do recommend approval for that one.
Just to be clear, Nikki, that this is after the fact with regard to a retaining wall and vegetation clearing that was performed by the previous owner?
No, by this owner.
By the current owners.
Yeah,
Okay.
right when they purchased it, I don't know if they didn't realize that they weren't allowed to or what, but so it was kind of, I don't know if an actual enforcement order was done. I don't think so, but it was in response to a violation. So they have cleared up. So from Callie's notes, they've cleared everything up except she just wanted a little bit more planting done, whether it died or they didn't do all of it. So they have a nice vegetated buffer strip between their lawn area that they use, which is a native fescue type mix, and the wetland. So they have a nice vegetated buffer strip.
Is there anything written that depicts, acts as a plan of, as a something of record for the retaining wall?
Let me grab the old site plan.
Well, the old site plan, I guess, wouldn't have had it.
Well, they had to file a notice of intent for this, so. And there was an as-built that does show the retaining wall.
Oh, okay. Oh, there wasn't, well, I'm sorry, I'm confused again. There was an NOI submitted. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is just a COC for that. Okay. All right. And it shows it. Okay, good. All right. So I guess, anybody questions from anybody? If without questions, I guess we're ready for Bob.
This is for 145 Pine Knoll Ave, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve 145 Pine Knoll Avenue for a certificate of compliance.
Williams, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right. That's all I have. I have no unforeseen items. Actually, I am doing the waterways meeting this afternoon. Ted wanted me to come specifically regarding a catwalk that had, I think I may have mentioned this at a previous meeting, a catwalk that has a boat moored out further, but they pull up to the catwalk to load people on and off. And Waterways seems to have some sort of issue with this. And I just wanted to get your opinion, whether you view catwalks as just a way to walk out there, or if people, I don't see a way to stop people from pulling their boat up and loading their people and then taking off.
So that catwalk projects out far enough that they can actually bring a boat up to it. So they have a chapter 90.
Yeah, there is some picture. I can't remember the address off the top of my head, 40 something. It's a pretty new one. I drove by it after I got the pictures a few days later, and their boat is being stored on the mooring, but they had some people that have older people that had a hard time, couldn't, necessarily get in a small rowboat to row out to their boat. And so they just, drove up and picked them up. But
I
yeah,
guess
definitely at the time they did it, they said there was enough tide water. I don't have any way to prove that.
we have, I think, in recent times had applications for a catwalk, which in effect were a dock. And I just wonder if this is one of those.
Right. We've used language that says you can't tie your boat up to it. I don't know if because I'd never, frankly, personally, I've never thought about it, going to the next step of saying you can't actually bring your boat up to it to load or
So
unload.
this particular order says you cannot dock your boat. So I don't know if that means
what we, right.
Long-term or for 5 minutes.
Yeah, what does dock mean? Yes.
Right.
I guess I always sort of assumed that meant that it was, you can't affix it with a rope and go off somewhere.
Right.
But the other issue is that, again, catwalks don't normally terminate in enough depth to be able to do
shouldn't
that.
even be able to do it.
Worry
Right.
about what the propeller is doing to the bottom.
Should have been a
holding
dock.
up no grass or anything. That's
see if there's marsh affected,
yeah, right, exactly. That would be the worry. And I guess you can't tell that until you snorkel down there or wait until there's a low enough tide to get a look at what's the effect on the vegetation.
Yeah, I think at high tide they can do it successfully, but at low tide they probably could not, is the impression I got.
Yeah.
Well, at the very least, from my perspective, they can't just, as I said, tie it up and go away. If they're just loading and unloading at high tide, I'm not sure we have anything specific to point to say that's illegal
Right.
from our perspective.
Other than if we find any evidence that it's harming the vegetation.
Yes, other than that, yeah.
Yeah. I do worry about a slippery slope a little bit. Everybody, if your catwalk goes out far enough, it's a huge temptation to turn it into a quasi dock.
Yeah, a dock by another name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that helps you, Nikki, but
It gives me a little bit of guidance.
Ask Waterways if they're thinking about doing a blanket prohibition on catwalks in Stage Harbor.
Yeah.
Okay, I can ask them.
They asked me that, and I said, "Why don't you guys deal with that?"
Yeah, that would be good.
That would be that would simplify things.
Always.
And it was 41 Woodcarver Knoll. It's a pretty recently approved one.
Oh yes.
Yep, they're talking about catwalk regulations compared to Orleans, and then floats and microplastics bylaw language, which is probably something we should add to our regulations, but we'll see what they do first. They want to talk about dock lighting, which we've spoken about again, and if we can find a reason that it harms wildlife is really the only thing I can think of for our regulations.
Or fish life.
Yeah. No, I did find the regulations for Australia, which are rather extensive on lighting on docks because of both migratory birds, but also wildlife.
All right. So yeah, the waterways meeting is fairly pertinent to our stuff, so that's why I'm being forced to go.
Well, report back. It's important.
Yeah, no,
So you're being invited, included.
And then I also have a fundamentals unit tonight at 6, so it's a long day. But
so we don't have a hearing next week, right? That's our third.
Correct.
If you guys don't have any, just a quick note. I think the regulations review team needs to meet next week. So
okay.
We'll figure out the right time. Anyway, I'll send an email.
Yep.
Is that going great, Janet?
It's going slow. We're starting with buffer zones and variances. So it's right off the bat. It's complicated, of course. And it's everything that we do. a buffer zone.
Well,
Do we know?
thank you.
Will
We
Karen
thank you
be
for
back?
your service.
Wait, sorry?
I was just wondering, will Karen be back next week? Does anyone know?
She didn't say one way or another. It's some sort of apartment clean out deal for a relative.
Yeah, I think it's local here. I don't think she had to travel.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would think she'd be back. Dickie, are you going to send out something to those who aren't here today about the rule that to remind them because they're relatively new, the rule that if they can't miss 2 of them and
Okay.
vote on those applications at that point, and that they can watch, if they miss 1, they can watch the hearing and then sign a form and then be legal to vote.
Yes. And I'll mark on their files which ones they've missed that they may or may not be able to vote on if they don't sign the form.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you all.
All right.
All right.
Pretty good.
I'd like to want to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Oh, yeah, right.
Bob is keeping us on the straight.
Thank you, Bob.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Let's have a roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Mary, what do you think?
Aye.
I think so as well. All right. See you in a couple of weeks.
Bye, bye,
Take care
Frankie.
now.
Bye. I see you guys are here, but